What's up, people? We're about to complain for a really long time about X-Men First Class, because that movie has issues. Oh my God, does it have issues? Anyway, I have my brother from another mother, Agent O.
What's up?
And we're gonna yeah. So yeah, what'd you think about the movie?
If you didn't ever read any of the comics, you could actually kind of enjoy the movie. Well, I mean, you will enjoy the movie, but and even people who have read the comics still enjoyed the movie. We just did not. I mean, where do you begin?
Shit was, yeah.
First, I mean, we can start off with the characters, and who they chose to actually be in the movie. Like the cast choices weren't bad. I didn't really have a problem with those. Obviously, Magneto and the people they chose for Magneto and Xavier,
they were perfect.
Did a good job.
Yeah.
And they helped carry that movie.
They did carry the whole damn movie. They carried that whole damn movie. Everything hinged on their performances, and that was it.
Yeah, and I think that's the main reason why everybody liked the movie. Other than the special effects and the money shots and all that, and getting to see everybody do their powers.
And even some of that was lame. Like, I wasn't impressed with Azazel. After seeing Nightcrawler do the shit he was doing, I don't even know what the point was. Like, so if you teleport, you just automatically know sick ass martial arts. And he was the only person in the whole movie who could actually fight.
True, but
he wasn't even important either.
Yeah, and his character was still lame. Because if you've read the comics, you see
he's a whole different character.
Yeah, and how much of a way better, more developed character he is than just Sebastian's thug.
Yeah, pretty much. Same thing with Riptide. Same thing with
Riptide didn't even have any lines.
Yeah, like what the hell was that? Like, here's an underwear model that's gonna beat your ass. That's it. With his little whirling dervish bullshit specialty. Okay, I'll say it like this before we start picking. Overall, if you have no idea of what X-Men is about, and since we know that the X-Men film franchises, the franchise as in film form, is its own universe. It's completely removed. They're trying to completely remove it from the comics, even though so much of its success hinges on the fact that it is part of the comics. If you just take it like that, pretend you don't know anything about the comics, then you'll probably enjoy the movie because you have no frame of reference. It is what it is.
Yeah.
If you have a frame of reference, though, like us, like I've said before, X-Men was like one of the primary books that I was reading for most of my childhood. I was watching the cartoon, I was collecting the toys, I was playing all the video games. Like, the 90s was all about X-Men for me. So by the time I graduated high school, they had finished, Age of Apocalypse, I think?
Yeah.
And that's when X-Men started to get really weird. And I was like, Then the movies came out, and it was a wrap, and I stopped reading it because the whole X-Men universe started to change because of the films.
It started, the comics started to
imitate the film, pretty much the films, which is a no-no because the film, like I stated before, the films are a separate universe. I mean, from 5 seconds into the movie, you see like Magneto is the right age in real life, but when you read the comics, Magneto's a youthfully exuberant old man with white hair, but he's muscular and he's built and he's humping Rogue and things like that, and it's like, wait a second, if he was in Auschwitz, like as a young man, how could he be like that in the comics? So it's two different worlds. But there's things that they do that tell you, like on one hand, they try to do things that say this is separate. Like Wolverine being 6 feet tall and kind of handsome, and Rogue being Wolverine's sidekick as opposed to Jubilee being the sidekick. But then there's other things they do, like characters like Professor X, he's verbatim exactly the guy from the comics. Characters like
I think Cyclops looked like he should.
Cyclops felt the role, but he didn't. I mean, he only on the surface he felt like the character in the comics, but then they dumbed him down something fierce for the movie.
And Jean Grey they dumbed down.
Jean Grey too. And then there's things like the mansion, the plane. They're all things that you've seen in the comics that feel exactly the same, with little tweaks, but like overall you can see that they're trying to do something completely different with it, and that's the part that pisses me off. if you have a better idea for the concept of mutants fighting other mutants for like some type of supremacy or equality or whatever, how about you just make a whole new franchise with that shit? Don't take these characters that we've already invested so much, like some of us have invested a lot of our time because we've been reading since we learned how to read. It's kind of messed up that when you watch the movies, you see like it's like they just shit all over that stuff, you know? And
they barely even touch on the subject matter of why the X-Men were brought together in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were brought together to fight against, you know, bigotry and racism that they were all feeling at that time. You know, it's always been kind of hinted on, especially in the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
But they never actually delved in and really tackled the subject. Instead, like Bryan Singer decided to throw in, you know, some pseudo, not even pseudo, but like some implied like homosexual overtones with, you know.
Yeah, with us coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you come out? When did you come out?
Yeah, it just didn't. I mean, I understand it, I get it, but it doesn't quite fit with what that comic was supposed to be about and what the movies. What I guess I went into thinking that the movies and the comics were supposed to represent.
Yeah.
Same deal with First Class. You had my bad.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Same deal with First Class. You had
the idea was there, but they didn't.
I feel like the idea wasn't even there. Like it felt more like they were hung up on being accepted visually in society.
Yeah.
And
okay. Sorry, you just reminded me. Okay, so here's where we get into the holes. The overall plot of the movie was you have young Xavier and young Magneto from different walks of life. They've dealt with different things, but they're like polar opposites of, you know, what do they say? 2 sides of the same coin. They're both mutants, they're both powerful, but one is privileged and one has been like persecuted. So you have one who's vengeful as fuck, and then you have the other one who's like, I can help everyone. Mutants are awesome. And then they give you all these other, like, you know, what did someone call them? Like a bargain bin of mutants. They tell you Mystique was Professor X's best friend, almost like his sister, which I don't know where they got that shit from. Somebody pulled that way out of their anus, and they made that into a plot point. Moira McTaggart was a CIA agent in this story. Apparently, Alex Summers and Professor X and Magneto should all be around the same age, but you know, like they said, it's their own story. But anyway, the idea is Moira McTaggart finds she's trying to get information on what's his name, Sebastian Shaw, and she sees something that she can't explain, and she chalks it up into being something having to do with mutants. She goes and she finds Professor X, gets his help because he's just finished his studies on the mutant gene. And I guess now he's considered a professor. He just expert. Became the expert on, you know, mutant genetics or genetics in that area. She figures he can help her because he's the only person who knows and who's ever spoke out about these mutations. And through this, you get Professor X meeting Beast, who helps Professor X find other characters who end up becoming this ragtag version of the First Class. Now, the issues I have that they bring up are no one's concerned with the fact that the powers that they have set them apart from regular people. They're all concerned about physically, like Phil said, they're all concerned with physically fitting in society. And the person who is the most concerned with this has a mutation that he can hide by putting on a pair of fucking shoes. Which makes no damn sense.
Yeah, it would have made sense if they had went back and actually made him look human but apish, like he originally looked before he took the serum and got all furred out
in the real First Class.
Yeah, then I could understand. Oh, I wouldn't want to look like the missing link either.
Exactly.
So I could understand what he's feeling like, but
they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Instead, they tried to harp on an aspect that if you met this guy, you wouldn't know anything was different about him except he's really freaking smart. They said he graduated Harvard when he was like 15. So dude's a genius, and they hammer it home. But then he doesn't understand that he can hide his mutation by wearing shoes. And to even drive it home further, he had been doing this all this time until Professor X walked up to him, read his mind, and was like, oh my God, it's good to see that there's someone like you in the inside working for the CIA. And the director of the CIA, this special projects division, had no idea for all the years the dude had been working for him that he was a mutant. What the fuck? Like, who didn't notice that this is a plot point that you just fucked up completely? And then Mystique, who can be anything she wants. She's pissed off that she can't just walk around buck naked. Normal people can't fucking walk around butt-ass naked in society. Why should a blue mutant with scales, I mean, she's hot. Okay, fine. Still, you gotta put clothes on. And then they make it a big deal, like you should feel sorry for her because she can't walk around butt naked. Come on now. I mean, all of us males, you know what I mean, that are playing for a specific team, we would all love to see women that are hot of any color, blue, purple, red, yellow, whatever,
doo-doo brown,
with nice everything. They should be able to run around naked, but like in society that's not accepted, and she's pissed. So her and Mr. McCoy have these little intimate conversations that are like sexual innuendos with, using each other's blood using her blood for a possible cosmetic cure, which was really bootleg, because if it is a prequel, they've touched on the cure thing, and in these movies they've already said that nothing like that had ever come before, and that they needed a mutant whose power or blood allowed for some certain things for them to be able to create any kind of cure, which was the MacGuffin in that movie. We're not going to get into that movie, but they somehow tried to harken back to that thing, and the whole movie was full of little tips of the hat to like the other movies without actually like fully acknowledging that the other movies existed, which was kind of strange.
Especially if it's supposed to be a reboot.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a reboot, yet Wolverine appeared like he did in X-Men Origins. Wolverine is in the movie, for those of you who don't know.
Spoiler alert.
And that's probably like the best scene in the movie, because it was funny, and he got all this FaceTime, because after he does what he does, the camera just loves him for some reason, and we're looking at Wolverine for a while. I'm like, this
Smoking
is not...
and drinking.
Yeah, this is not... He's doing what he does best. And this is not a Wolverine movie, yet somehow it became a Wolverine movie for a good 5 minutes of the damn time. But whatever, it was kind of nice. But I don't know. Other things. My biggest gripe.
The biggest plot hole in the movie.
Everybody who knows X-Men knows who Darwin is. And if you don't, you need to get on Wikipedia or Comic Vine and figure out who he is. Read about him. He told you his power is to adapt to survive.
To anything.
Any situation. And if you've read the comics, there's several examples. You can, because you know more about this than me.
All right. Darwin originally was part of the first team that Professor Xavier sent to save the original first team of X-Men, which was, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, and Angel. He was with a group of three other mutants. One could control energy, one could control Earth, one could control time.
They sound so damn powerful too.
Yeah, I know. Like these were cool characters that got killed off.
Yeah.
And anyway, the one who could control energy was actually the third Summers brother named Vulcan, who they didn't know, because after it all happened, Professor Xavier wiped Scott's mind, because he was the only one who actually was able to escape from the island. And Scott was so traumatized, the fact that he lost a brother that he didn't even know existed, that Professor X wiped his mind of it, and that's why it was a secret until whenever he resurfaced. Anyway, when they died, Darwin turned himself into energy in order to survive, and resided within Vulcan, and so those two ended up surviving that attack, only to come out later on, in the comic book continuity. So therein lies the ginormous plot hole of the movie.
Somebody put energy in this man's mouth, and he couldn't adapt to survive the energy. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't even just fart the energy out. He couldn't turn his insides into something that was with no friction to like let the energy pass through,
or even
or just
become
turn
the
to
energy
dust,
to disperse it,
or absorb it and reflect it. There was nothing. And it was like, wait up, you spent like a good 3 or 4 scenes, was it like 3 scenes ahead beforehand, explaining to us what his power was in really like kind of simple, fairly lame ways, because it didn't have anything to do with the action. And it didn't really push the story. He dunked his head in
water and developed gills.
Like right on the spot.
His cells, from both externally and internally, can change and reconfigure themselves to adapt. So
yeah, what were they doing? And it's because he was black. And a lot of people won't. They'll be like, "Why? What are you talking about?" But yeah, Hollywood has a nice little history with killing off the minorities first. And another thing about the acting, so Xavier and Magneto can do every accent, and because of this, all the other foreign X-Men don't have to have accents. Like, anyone who reads X-Men knows that Banshee and Moira McTaggart have like thick Scottish accents. What happened? And I get it was a switch up because they made McTaggart like American, I think. But like Banshee, where the hell did he come from? And why didn't he have his accent? Like, why is it like first Storm, they tried it, she couldn't do it, so they were like, screw it. Freaking the Russian, Colossus can't do.
He was barely in the movie anyway.
Yeah, and when he spoke, it was just, he was Billy. He wasn't Piotr like we know him to be. He was Billy. And then I know, right? Billy Cornfed. And then the only other person who did the accent properly was Nightcrawler. And it's kind of weird, you know? And then Magneto, the character who, like, he never, in the comics, I never pictured him having, like, an accent. And then they get a Shakespearean actor to play him, and it's like, oh, it fits. It's perfect. Then you watch this movie, and between Professor X and Magneto, they run the gamut of accents, and it's like they did it so that the other people don't have to do it. Like, what, you're trying to tell me only 2 people in this world have traveled? Like, 2 actors in the movie actually know how to act, and the rest of them can just play fantastical versions of themselves on screen. Like, it just seems kind of strange that these are things they forego for other things, you know? Because why did those characters have to have accents in the scenes that they spoke the same language as? Oh, and Shaw, I forgot, he was the other person. When they spoke whatever language they were speaking, which was mostly like either German or Russian, they put on the accent and everything. They didn't just speak the language, they like became Russian or became German for a second. And it was believable. Kevin Bacon's freaking German was ridiculous. I was like, shit, he can speak German? If that was actually him. Because it's possible they could have just voiced him over with someone who was German. But I don't know, it seemed like it was him. It seemed believable. What's his name? McAvoy. James McAvoy. He is Scottish. So, like, it's weird. And he has the accent. Normally, if you ever see him in an interview, he has a thick Scottish accent. But he can turn it off. He can do the American accent. He can do... I mean, there's little giveaways with most actors from, like, the UK in general that, like, they'll say certain things, like Hugh Jackman. he's Australian. It's like anything. There's always anything. In, you know, flicks when they're playing an American, and he gives it away. What's his name does it all the time too?
Russell Crowe?
Not Russell Crowe. Taken.
Oh, Liam Neeson?
Liam Neeson. He does it all the time. I mean, if you heard him speak in Taken, he was supposed to be, I think he was supposed to be American. And when you heard him say anything, just go back and watch those movies and listen to him say anything. That's one of the telltale words that he gives it away. But yeah, that was, I don't know why they keep dumbing down those aspects. It gives these characters more character, and they, you know, the X-Men are pretty international when you think about it, because they come from all walks of life. They come from all, like, many different countries. But like in the movies, they try to make them all seem like they're from here. All of them are from here. There's no mutants anywhere else. They're all from here. Everyone's American. Everyone acts American. Everyone sounds American. It's like, you guys are dumbing this down to like the umpteenth degree. X-Men kind of had like a natural epicness to it, and these movies have taken that away like to the umpteenth degree. I don't know. Stuff like that gets on my nerves, you know? Master Mold hasn't made an appearance. Do you know how epic that shit would be to see?
Sentinels really didn't make an appearance.
You see a Sentinel head. But back to the movie itself, because I know we keep jumping off on tangents. The movie just, it felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities to really wow the crowd. Like, after you watch, and I get this was the first class, after you go back and you watch the old movies, and you see how Ian McKellen kind of owned Magneto, you see this younger dude, what's his name? Fassbender? That's his last name?
I forgot his name.
I can't remember his name. But he's really good as Magneto, don't get me wrong. But there are little cues to the acting that he should have taken from Ian McKellen's performance, because he's not a better actor than Ian McKellen. And if you're going to play the younger version of a character, imitate some of what you saw the older version do. Now, I get, though, that this is a reboot / prequel, and I think that's the problem. Why so many things are kind of like wishy-washy. It's like, it kind of is, but it's not, because this director, which surprisingly he did Kick-Ass, and it's like Kick-Ass beat the shit out of this movie. Literally, it kicked this movie's ass. And it's weird because, like, there were no powers in that movie. And it seemed like they handled themselves for the most part. Even the main character, who couldn't really fight that well, he handled himself a little bit better and more believable than a lot of these guys did. I know people said this was fun, it was better than the first, but I feel like after the third movie, the bar has been set so low, so nobody really expects much from the X-Men franchise. Me, I'm not. This is the last X-Men movie that I'm going to pay money to see.
Me too.
Like, it wasn't horrible, don't get me wrong, because if you have no prior knowledge of the subject matter, you will enjoy it thoroughly. If you have some, you might enjoy it to a degree. But what I didn't like was just some of the generic Hollywood conventions they put in here that just, it kills it for me, because we should be past some of this stuff by now.
Yeah, the part when Sebastian Shaw is talking to the new class of X-Men, and he's talking about them being, ridiculed and possibly enslaved. And as soon as he says enslaved, the camera cuts over to Darwin.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to send some quick message. If it happens so fast, you almost don't catch it unless you kind of. I mean, we weren't even looking for it.
Yeah,
but
it
we
just
saw
popped
it,
up.
and
It's like, whoa,
and we were like, whoa, that's not right. And
I know, only black
I haven't
people
noticed
enslaved?
anybody ever in any of their other reviews ever actually bringing this issue up. Maybe because they think it was unintentional, but to me, I feel like it was unintentional because throughout.
I feel like it was intentional.
No, that's what I mean. I feel like it was intentional. My bad.
Yeah.
Because throughout all three movies, they've never touched on the subject of racism, which obviously that's what the X-Men were about. Here you have a movie that takes place in
during
the 60s when the civil rights movement was huge and everything was going down. You have a guy, you have an African American character who he definitely can't walk around in the street just being himself, not even being a mutant, without getting ridiculed. You don't touch on that at all. Or at least use the whole point of mutants being hated on by society and being bigoted and all that. You could have used that as a platform to address these racist issues that exist even today in America without making it a black and white issue.
Exactly.
And they chose not to do it at all.
At all. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, mutants weren't known in the film. There's people who are mutants that can hide their mutations so they could walk around. But, like, the idea is to explain that you have an issue, and Professor X plans to actually deal with the issue by showing people the good that mutants can do. That the races can be equal, even with these, like, differences, these huge differences. And like he said, they didn't even... I mean, the parallel, even in the comics, was always race. Bryan Singer turned it into sexual orientation, like an allegory for sexual orientation.
Sexual orientation. And then it got worse because it was your self-image and how good you feel about being yourself.
Yeah.
And how other people view you, which is lame.
Yeah, because it's a component, but it's not the overall thing. And I know some of you will be like, you guys are reaching. We're not reaching. Like, I write. and we both read a lot. So, good books don't do this kind of stuff. Good books do some of the stuff that we're talking about that was a missed opportunity in this. We're only pointing out the stuff that could have been done that was ignored to dumb it down for the audience, because it's as if Marvel is making these films for people who don't read their comics, which to me makes no sense.
And Hollywood in general is just afraid of that issue.
Exactly.
I mean, how many movies do we have about, the persecution of the Jews
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we had it again in this movie, which obviously that's a big part of Magneto's storyline. So I understand that. I get that. I support that.
So there's your racism right there.
But you didn't address all the other things that also go along with that.
Yep.
I mean, that's the whole reason why, you know, that's the Eric Lenschar's main driving force.
Yep.
You know, I mean, they always in comics they always compare Xavier and Magneto to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, which I personally don't agree with, but that's
they're extreme versions.
Like Malcolm X was never like just roll over people to get what you want, because that's kind of like how Magneto is.
Yeah.
But you know, I see where they're getting that from. But then once again, you have a prime opportunity to address that issues in the movie, and you kind of just skip over it. You don't even skip over it. You just you overshadow it with other things that aren't as important.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. All in all, we're not saying the movie completely sucks, but we're saying that there are aspects of the movie that really keep the movie from being something special. Because I mean, this was an opportunity to wipe the slate clean, and instead, it's like they went back in there and they cleaned up some things, but they did so much of the same shit that they had been doing in the last 3 films. And to me, you end up with a subpar end product. I'm not all amped like everybody else was. You know, like every review I've watched, everyone's like, this movie was badass. There was not a single badass in this movie except for maybe Magneto, because he killed everybody.
Yeah.
It was like it should have just been Magneto. X-Men Origins Magneto. Because he did all the work, honestly.
Which they scrapped anyway. They're not going to do that movie.
But I just, I don't understand how people went in and saw this movie and didn't notice some of these things. And when they did their reviews, the point of a review is not only to tell us the pros, but to tell us the cons. And everybody seems to straddle the fence or stay on one side and not even touch the other side. So while you do have an okay movie, there's a lot of things that kind of, I don't know, it took me out of it. When they did the whole crap with Darwin, which was a pretty decent way through the movie, I kind of checked out, because I was like, seriously, another movie where you attacked a minority first? And what was the deal with the pixie chick with the name Angel? When we know who Angel was, we saw him in one of the movies, we know he was one of the original 5. You couldn't just come up with another name. What was her point? Was just to be tail for Shaw after what's her name got put in jail? That was it? Seriously? You couldn't just... There wasn't any other hot mutant chicks from X-Men that they could take. And even this team, it was the most, I don't know, like someone else said.
It's like they put all these X-Men characters in a box, shook the names in the box, and started
pulling out random
names.
papers. Yeah, because if Darwin had survived, the movie would have been a little bit easier. I mean, their version of Havoc, he was a bitch. He was a complete bitch, but he talked big. He was trying to be tough, but with his hula hoops of doom. And I'm like, you seriously went out of your way to try to make him a badass. He was like a manufactured badass, and he came off as just a dick, more so than even what people felt Cyclops was. I mean, Cyclops is the leader. People thought he was a dick because he was the polar opposite to Wolverine, and everybody wants Wolverine to be the star of the show. And to me, that's annoying, because once again, it takes away from the group dynamic.
Yep.
And another thing in this movie that was missed is the team never operates as a team. Never. You never get to see that. I mean, movies like Sucker Punch, they gave that movie all kinds of shit. But in the end of the movie, actually in every single one of those action sequences or mission sequences when they were in the imagination of Baby Doll, they acted like a team, especially that last one. And there's yet to be an X-Men movie where you see them act as a team, even though we know they're going to start training in a danger room. We know that the group dynamic is a big part of the...
But even the first 3 movies were like that, too. They didn't really fight as a team. Everybody kind of got separated, and it was all chaotic.
It was stereotypical Hollywood script writing, where you needed different people to be in different places so they can play off each other, but you didn't have the team playing off each other as a team. And it was really bad in part 3 because they kept talking about being a team, but you would see members of the team work together, but you didn't see the whole team work together as one cohesive group, like one unit, you know? Like when you watch movies with SWAT teams or with Navy SEALs units or whatever, and if you play games properly, like when we play Rainbow Six, you got to keep shit tight and everybody's got to play their position, you know? You don't have that in these movies. That's the whole point. And if anyone has ever read an X-Men book, that's like a key factor to them doing all the training, living together, learning philosophy and ethics and everything together. And so that when they go out there in the field, they actually like, you know, they operate as a unit. In this movie, they have a week to train, which I was like, okay, so how are we supposed to believe that they can pull this shit off as a team with a week of training? There were just too many unbelievable bullshit, like we did it for the sake of doing it, like aspects of this film. So for me, I was just like, man, you know, like, so if I was gonna rate it, I give it like a 5 out of 10. It's halfway there. We still got a lot of growing up to do. So maybe the sequel will push it over the top, because Matthew Vaughn is capable. I don't know if he didn't write this.
No,
It was
Bryan Singer
and someone else. Yeah.
Which brings me to another thing. Why do they keep letting this guy make X-Men movies?
Well, the fans love it. The fans of the movies love Bryan Singer's writing, but I know most like hardcore comic artists and writers that don't agree with the stuff he's doing. He shits on characters that are extremely important to the mythos.
Simply because he doesn't like
because he
the
doesn't
power
read,
set
or he doesn't read the comics. He clearly doesn't read the comics, just like he didn't read Superman comics. He watched the movies, so when he had the opportunity to make a Superman movie, what'd he do? He made a sequel to movies made 20 years ago. Superman's gone for 5 fucking years, and not a single new villain shows up to rob people, to kill people, nothing. Lex Luthor is still humping old women for their money. Really?
Metropolis should have been in utter chaos.
It should have been like GTA. 100% he should have came back to GTA with Intergang and all those kind of people. But no, because he doesn't read comics. I'm tired of movie execs getting cats that don't know the subject matter to make movies. Hey, dude, you made this nice music video. You want to make a movie based on a comic? The comics, I got all the comics right here. Oh, nah, I kind of know what that's about. So, you know, give me some money. We'll give you like, you know, a couple $100 million to make this movie. Oh, really? Cool. So $99 million goes in his pocket, and $1 million is spent on, you know, the movie. Or let's say half of that is spent on the movie and paying the actors, and the other half goes directly in his pocket.
Hell, I don't even think any of those movies got close to there being up to $100 million to be made.
You're right. But it just feels like there's something missing. I mean, when you watch Spider-Man, you can clearly tell that the directors and the writers, they've watched the cartoons, they've read the comics, they know some key points that would make this feel like a complete Spider-Man story. Even Blade, the first two, we're not going to talk about the movie that doesn't exist. Those feel like the person read those books and they said, these points were cool, these points are not, so we're not going to touch on those points, you know? And they focus on the good. Even freaking The Punisher, same deal. Even though I hate the first movie, they still focused on points from the books, which you can clearly tell they read a run of The Punisher. What else? Even the whack-ass Fantastic Four movies, the group dynamic was still the group dynamic that was in the cartoon, and it was in the books, some of the more lighthearted books.
And it was always about family. So it rang through in those movies.
I don't understand how they missed the mark. Batman, same deal. You can tell Christopher Nolan has read a ton of those books, and he knows which arcs could use like polishing up. And he took the key elements from some of those arcs and he shaped that into something that was fucking amazing. And like the X-Men movies just failed to pick up steam because they keep on alienating the readership. Instead, they keep trying to create their own shit. You're not Stan Lee. Stan Lee, he knew what he was doing. I mean, he'll say something different, like he kind of didn't know what he was doing, but he knew what he wanted to tell as a story, and he knew what it would take to tell that story. And some of the people that came after him, love him or hate him, they knew what would help push those stories even further. These cats don't seem to get it. They can't make X-Men from scratch because X-Men already exists. You need to take the shit that exists and make it better. You need to polish up on what has already, been done in comic book form and present it to a new audience and the old audience in, movie form with the polish that's necessary for everyone to believe and understand the psychology behind why things happen the way they happen on screen in real life. Because essentially you're watching it happen in a form of real life. This is a reality you're watching, And I feel like they keep missing it. So I don't know, what would you give it? Like a 1 to 10 scale.
Man. I'd give it a 4.5. I thought you were being generous and giving it a 5.
Well, I just feel like it's halfway there. I think like the action didn't impress me on the action level. The special effects were like they weren't that great. I mean, there's bad movies like Night Watch and Day Watch that have amazing special effects, but the movies were just like.
And I think that was because they rushed it. They did rush that flick. I'm not even a Thor fan, but I would rather watch Thor
was fucking
again,
amazing, and I can't believe
rather than watch X-Men First Class.
One reviewer said he liked it better than Thor, and I was like, oh my god, are you kidding me?
And I like that reviewer too.
Yeah, me too. I'm not gonna call him out, but you fucked up, homie. For real, you really fucked up.
Yeah, we're both fans, and you dropped the ball.
You dropped the ball on that one because Thor was superior in every single way: storytelling, acting. Even the special effects.
The way they reportrayed the mythos. I mean,
you gotta pay attention to the subject matter. Directors, you guys are fucking up. You're fucking up bad. So anyway, we've complained enough. We're telling you the truth, though. If you go back and you read about characters like Darwin, if you read about Havoc wasn't that kind of a douchebag. He was a different kind of douchebag, and he was a relationship douchebag. He treated Polaris like shit. But if you go back and you read these books, and then you see what they gleaned from maybe 2 pages of some random X Factor book or X Force or something, you see that these guys are like really bad caricatures of the versions that we all know and love. So, I don't know. Because of that kind of stuff, I'm harsh on them. So, anyway, we complained. Hope you dig it. If not, argue with us in the comments below. And, we'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Peace.